Hey friends, it's been a while. I know I haven't posted in some time, and I'm really sorry for going quiet on you. Life threw me a few challenges that made it hard to keep up, but I didn't want the stories to stop, so I've brought in a new voice to help tell them. I truly hope you'll love it as much as I do. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep this channel alive with me. Let's dive back into the stories together.
The house was quiet, too quiet for a place meant to welcome strangers. At first glance, it looked like a charming rental, an old cottage tucked into the hills just outside of Asheville, North Carolina. The online photos had shown a wide porch lined with rocking chairs, ivy curling against faded blue shutters, and a warm amber glow spilling through lace-trimmed curtains. But now, standing in front of it with her overnight bag, Leah felt something off. The silence pressed in. No birdsong, no distant cars, not even the whisper of leaves. Just stillness, like the house had been holding its breath for years. She pulled the strap of her bag higher on her shoulder and forced a smile, telling herself she was being dramatic. After all, she had been traveling for hours, and exhaustion had a way of making shadows darker than they really were. She clicked the keypad code the host had texted her earlier, listening for the mechanical whir of the lock. The door gave with a heavy creak, almost as if it resented being opened. Inside, the air smelled faintly of pine cleaner mixed with something older, something like damp fabric locked away too long. The entryway was simple, wooden floors that had been polished so often the boards shone like glass. A grandfather clock standing solemn in the corner, its pendulums swinging with a tired rhythm. Leah stepped in, her sneakers squeaking slightly against the waxed floor. She dragged her bag toward the living room. The space matched the listing photos perfectly. Leather sofa, braided rug, a fireplace with a row of family portraits above it. Except the photos didn't show faces she recognized. An older couple stared straight at the camera with stiff smiles, and beside them, two teenage girls with pale hair braided tight against their heads. Their eyes seemed oddly focused, not at the lens, but slightly off, as though something behind the photographer had caught their attention. Leah looked away. "Creepy old photos. Every rental has them," she muttered. She tossed her bag on the sofa and pulled out her phone. One bar of signal, just enough to send her mom a quick text. "Made it safe. House is cute but super old. We'll check in tomorrow." She hit send, then shut the screen. The kitchen was brighter, with white cabinets and old enamel counters. A fruit basket sat on the table filled with waxy, too-perfect apples. They were the kind that looked appealing but tasted like disappointment. She brushed her fingers over one, half expecting it to crumble to dust. It was solid, cold. She left it. Upstairs, the rooms had the same eerie sense of perfection. Beds with tightly tucked quilts, curtains pulled to just the right angle, lamps already plugged in and waiting. Two waiting. Leah paused outside the second bedroom. The door was half closed, as though someone had slipped out in a hurry. She nudged it open with her foot. The bed was made, but the pillow carried the faint indentation of a head. Her breath caught. Maybe the cleaner had stayed for a nap. Maybe. She ran her hand along the nightstand, feeling for dust. Clean. Too clean. "Okay," she whispered to herself. "You're just tired." She chose the master bedroom at the end of the hall and shut the door firmly behind her. Still, she couldn't shake the sensation of being watched. She pulled out her laptop, planning to stream a show, but the Wi-Fi sputtered, then refused to load. The signal bar blinked weakly, as though the house itself didn't want her connecting to the outside world. By 9, Leah gave up. She curled beneath the heavy quilt and scrolled through her phone one last time. No service at all now, just the mocking SOS in the corner. She set it down and closed her eyes. At first, sleep came easily. Then a sound. Not loud, just the faint scrape of movement downstairs. like a chair shifting across wood. Leah's eyes opened to the dark ceiling. She held still, straining to hear. The grandfather clock ticked. The quilt was heavy, her body stiff under it. The scrape came again, this time longer, dragging. Leah sat up, heart pounding. She told herself it was the house settling, old beams shifting in the night. But then she remembered there had been no sounds outside, no birds, no crickets. The silence was unnatural. A house this still didn't settle. She swung her legs out of bed, careful not to let the frame creak. Her bare feet pressed against the cold floorboards. She moved to the door, pressing her ear to the wood. Nothing. Then, footsteps. Slow, deliberate, ascending the stairs. Leah's breath hitched. She backed away from the door, eyes darting to the window. Too far to jump. She searched for her phone, clutching it like a lifeline, though it still read no service. The footsteps stopped, right outside her door. Silence. Leah pressed her hand to her mouth, biting back a cry. Minutes dragged. Finally, a new sound. The soft metallic twist of the doorknob. It turned once, twice, stopped. Her pulse roared in her ears. She crouched beside the bed, clutching her phone, staring at the door as if it might burst open. But it didn't. After what felt like forever, the footsteps retreated, slow, dragging, until they faded into nothing. Leah stayed frozen for nearly an hour, waiting for any sign of movement. None came. At last, she crept back into bed, pulling the quilt tight around her. Her eyes drifted to the wall where a small, square frame hung crooked. Inside, under the glass, was a black and white photo of the house. She hadn't noticed it before. In the bottom corner of the picture, through the window of the very room she lay in now, was the faint outline of a figure, standing, watching.
The night stretched endlessly. Leah barely slept, her body wired from the sound of those footsteps. When light finally pushed through the curtains, pale and gray, she felt like she'd been awake for centuries. Morning should have brought relief. It didn't. The house looked different in daylight, not less creepy, just differently so. The polished floors gleamed in a way that reminded her of water just before it floods. Shadows collected in the corners, reluctant to move. The family portraits above the fireplace seemed sharper now, as though someone had retouched them overnight. The girls' pale braids caught the light in silver streaks, and Leah could swear the corners of their mouths twitched, not into smiles, but into something like recognition. Her stomach growled, grounding her in the ordinary. She trudged to the kitchen. The fruit basket still sat perfectly arranged on the table. The apples hadn't moved, hadn't bruised, hadn't softened. They looked as flawless as when she'd arrived, but their sheen was unnatural, like wax under a museum display. She opened the fridge. Empty. No milk, no eggs, not even a bottle of water. The hum of the compressor was there, but its coldness carried no comfort. She shut the door quickly, trying not to think about why a rental house would stock decorative fruit, but no actual food. Her phone still had no service, not a single bar. Leah walked around the rooms, waving it near windows, tilting it like a divining rod. Nothing. Just the quiet hum of the house, as if the walls themselves were muffling the outside world. Needing fresh air, she stepped onto the porch. The rocking chairs sat perfectly aligned, unmoved by the night's supposed visitor. She leaned against the railing, scanning the forest. That was when she noticed something strange. The forest looked denser than it had yesterday. She remembered seeing the road clearly through the trees when she arrived, but now it seemed swallowed. Leah set her jaw. Nope, not doing this. She grabbed her keys and strode toward her car. She'd drive to the nearest diner, get breakfast, maybe even stay in a motel. Airbnb reviews were always a gamble anyway. But when she pressed the key fob, nothing happened. She tried again. The car sat lifeless, its windows fogged slightly from the inside. A cold ripple ran up her spine. She yanked the driver's door handle. Locked. She unlocked it manually, slid inside, and jammed the key into the ignition. She twisted once, twice. The engine didn't even cough. It was like the car had never been alive. Her reflection in the rearview mirror looked pale, hair tangled from a restless night. Behind her reflection, her blood froze, was something else. A shadow in the back seat, a shape too tall and too still. Leah spun around. Empty. The seat was bare. Her breath came fast, shallow. She climbed out of the car and slammed the door, gripping the keys so hard they pressed into her palm. She needed to leave. On foot if she had to. Back inside the house, she threw her bag over her shoulder. As she turned, she froze. The grandfather clock had stopped. Its pendulum hung still, its hands frozen at 3:07. Leah stared at it, the weight of dread pressing into her chest. She remembered the footsteps from the night before, the hand on the knob, and now the clock halted just after 3. Coincidence, she whispered, though she didn't believe it. She pulled her bag tighter and walked to the door. Before she could open it, a sound rang through the house, a faint melody, soft and uneven, like a child humming. The tune floated down from upstairs. Her throat tightened. She backed away, her hand slipping off the doorknob. The humming grew clear, not joyous, but tuneless, like someone practicing notes they didn't quite understand. She tiptoed to the staircase, staring up at the landing. The air seemed thicker there, as though the house wanted her to climb. "Don't," she told herself, but her legs carried her anyway. Step by step, the boards groaning softly under her weight. At the top, the hallway stretched long and dim. The humming came from the half-closed door, the same room where she'd seen the pillow's indentation. Her heart pounded. She nudged the door open with trembling fingers. The bed was empty, neat again, but the humming stopped the instant she looked inside. Dead silence filled the space. Then a whisper, so faint she almost thought it was her imagination. Leah. Her name. She stumbled back, hitting the doorframe. "No! Nope! I'm done!" She rushed downstairs, practically tumbling down the last few steps. She headed for the door again. This time, she would leave and not look back. But the door was locked. Not the keypad, not the deadbolt, something else. The handle refused to turn, as if welded shut. She kicked it, pounded it with her fists. "Let me out!" The house didn't answer. She staggered back into the living room, chest heaving. The portraits loomed above the fireplace, and for a horrific second, she realized something new. The 2 girls with braided hair were no longer staring off camera. They were staring at her. Her knees weakened. She turned away, refusing to look, but her eyes betrayed her, sliding back. The girls' faces were sharper, clearer, as though the photograph had been updated overnight. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Relief surged. Service! She scrambled for it, flipping it open. A single notification glowed across the screen. A photo message, sent from an unknown number. Her own face stared back at her, taken just seconds ago. Her hand trembled so violently she nearly dropped the phone. She spun, scanning the room. No one there. Not a click of a camera. The phone buzzed again. Another photo. This one wasn't of her. It was of the master bedroom. The quilt pulled back. A faint indentation in the pillow, and under it, a shadow, long and thin, stretching across the bed like a waiting figure. Leah dropped the phone. It clattered against the wood floor, screen lighting up with another incoming photo. But she couldn't look. She couldn't. The humming began again, drifting down the stairs, sweet and chilling at all once.
Leah's pulse thundered as the humming drifted down the staircase again. It was lighter this time, almost playful, like a child skipping through a meadow, but layered under the sweetness was something broken. Something off-key that made her stomach knot. She forced herself to pick up her phone. The screen was lit with another photo notification. With shaking hands, she opened it. Her blood turned to ice. The photo showed the living room, the very spot she stood in now, but not empty. There was a figure in the corner, tall and faceless, just beyond the reach of the firelight. Leah's breath came in ragged gasps. She swung her gaze to the corner, empty. Only the grandfather clock with its frozen hands. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." Her mind scrambled for logic. Maybe someone hacked the Wi-Fi? Maybe the host had hidden cameras? But she had checked. The Wi-Fi didn't even work. And if cameras were in the house, where were they? She scanned the walls, the ceiling, even the lampshades, searching for pinhole lenses. Nothing. Only the feeling that every object in the room was aware of her. The humming grew louder. This time it wasn't coming from upstairs. It was circling the house. One moment near the kitchen, the next near the porch, then brushing past the windows. Leah grabbed her bag again and bolted for the back door. She yanked on the knob. It didn't budge. She tried the side door near the laundry. Stuck. Each exit locked as though sealed by something stronger than metal. Her throat tightened with panic. She darted to the nearest window, prying at the frame, trying to force it open. It groaned, but held firm. Not even a crack. The glass felt colder than ice under her palms. Her phone buzzed again. Against every instinct, she looked. Another photo. This one was from outside the house, taken through the very window she leaned against. Her own face stared back at her, pale and wide-eyed, captured in the moment. Leah stumbled away, her legs trembling. "You're not real," she whispered, though her voice cracked. "You're not real." But the air didn't agree. The humming stopped. Silence swallowed the house again. Then, footsteps. Slow, heavy, moving across the second floor, back and forth, pacing. Leah clenched her fists, nails digging into her skin. She couldn't just sit here waiting. She had to do something. She grabbed a fireplace poker from beside the hearth, the metal weight cold and reassuring in her grip. If someone or something came down those stairs, she wouldn't go down easy. The footsteps stopped suddenly. Then came a new sound. A door creaking open upstairs. Her heart hammered. She tightened her hold on the poker, moving quietly to the base of the staircase. She craned her neck, staring up at the landing. The hallway was dim, the doors still and silent. Then, movement. A girl stepped into view. Leah's breath hitched. She couldn't have been more than 13, with pale skin and 2 neat braids trailing over her shoulders. She wore an old-fashioned dress, the kind you'd expect in a sepia photo from a century ago. The girl's eyes locked on Leah's, unblinking. Her throat dried. "Hello?" The girl tilted her head, lips parting just slightly, as if to speak, but no words came, only a faint smile that never reached her eyes. Then, in a blink, she was gone. One moment there, the next, emptiness. Leah stumbled back. Her hand shook so violently the poker nearly slipped. "I saw you," she whispered to the empty landing. "I know you're real." Her phone buzzed. She almost didn't look, but curiosity clawed at her. The photo showed the girl, standing right behind her. Leah spun, swinging the poker wildly. Nothing. Empty space. Her own gasp echoed too loudly in the hollow room. The air shifted, colder now, biting at her skin. And then came a new sound, the soft creak of the rocking chairs on the porch. Back and forth. Back and forth. Her eyes darted to the front windows. One of the chairs rocked slowly, though no wind stirred, just steady motion, as though someone invisible had claimed a seat to watch. She backed away, trembling. Her mind screamed at her to run. But where? Every door was sealed, every window locked. She was trapped in a maze designed to keep her inside. Her phone lit up again. Another photo. This one showed the front porch, both rocking chairs moving in unison, and between them, a shadowy figure, legs crossed, watching through the window. Leah dropped the phone. It hit the rug with a muffled thud. She pressed her hands to her ears, desperate to block out the silence pressing in. Then, faintly, she heard it again. A whisper. Leah. Her name drawn out like a breath. Not upstairs this time. Not outside. It was in the room with her. Her chest tightened as she scanned every corner. Nothing moved, but the weight of the whisper clung to the air. "Stop!" she screamed, her voice cracking. "Just stop!" For a moment, there was silence. Then the grandfather clock ticked. Once. A single sharp sound that shouldn't have been possible. The pendulum was still frozen. Her vision blurred with panic. She stumbled toward the stairs, poker raised. Maybe if she confronted whatever lived here, it would end. Maybe it was better than waiting to be hunted. She climbed halfway before stopping. The air thickened around her, heavy as water. She could barely breathe. Each step forward felt like pushing into something unseen. And then, at the top of the stairs, both girls appeared. The same braids, the same pale faces. They stood side by side now, staring down at her. Their mouths opened at the same time, and instead of words, a shrill hum poured out, vibrating through the house. It wasn't a tune anymore. It was a warning. Or a lure. Leah screamed, dropping the poker. She covered her ears, stumbling back down the stairs. The sound drilled into her skull, rising higher, sharper, until she thought her head might split. Then silence. She collapsed at the bottom step, gasping for air. When she dared to look up, the landing was empty again. Her phone buzzed once more. Against her will, she picked it up. The new photo nearly made her heart stop. It was her, asleep in bed. From the angle, the photo had been taken just inches from her face.
Leah stared at the photo until her vision blurred, her own face slack with sleep, eyelids resting as though she'd been at peace. But she hadn't been. She'd been wide awake, trapped in restless panic most of the night. Her stomach lurched. Whoever or whatever took the photo had been in the room, inches away, watching. Her hands trembled so hard she nearly dropped the phone again. She hurled it instead, sending it skidding across the floor until it smacked the base of the wall. For a moment she wanted to smash it to pieces, to destroy the evidence. But another thought crept in. It was her only lifeline, even if the signal was dead. Her chest heaved as she forced herself to stand. She had to get out. She didn't care if she broke a window, clawed through a wall, or ran until her legs gave out. Anything was better than being photographed by unseen eyes. The silence pressed in again, heavier this time. Even her breathing seemed too loud, echoing strangely against the polished wood floors. She dragged her bag toward the nearest window and slammed the lamp from the side table against it. The glass shuddered, but didn't crack. She swung harder. Still nothing. It was like hitting stone. "Come on!" she screamed, her voice raw. She struck again and again until her arms ached. The window remained intact, mocking her. Not a single scratch. Panting, she stumbled back and tripped over the edge of the rug. Her knees hit the floor hard, pain flashing up her legs. She gritted her teeth, trying to push herself up, and froze. The rug had shifted. Beneath its corner was a square outline etched into the wooden floor, a trapdoor. Her heart thudded. This hadn't been in the listing photos. With shaking fingers, she pulled the rug back. A brass ring embedded in the square gleamed faintly. She hesitated, dread prickling her skin. A part of her screamed not to open it, but the bigger part, the part desperate for escape, urged her to try. She hooked her fingers into the ring and pulled. The wood groaned, then gave way.
revealing a set of narrow stairs descending into darkness. A damp smell rose up, heavy with mildew and something metallic. She grabbed her phone, using the dim glow of the cracked screen as a makeshift flashlight. One careful step, then another. The air grew colder with each descent, clinging to her skin like wet cloth. At the bottom, the space opened into a cellar. The walls were lined with shelves of dusty jars filled with unidentifiable shapes. Some looked like fruit, others like hunks of preserved meat, but their colors were wrong, tinged gray-green as if rotting in suspension. Leah gagged. She swept the phone's light across the room. At the far end stood an old table, its surface scarred with deep knife marks, and above it, her stomach twisted, a line of Polaroid photos pinned neatly to the wall. She staggered closer, her knees weak. The photos were faded, but the faces were clear. Different people, different years, young, old, men, women, all standing in the same living room she'd just come from. Some smiled nervously, others looked terrified. One or two appeared asleep or unconscious. Leah's breath shook. She scanned them, her eyes snagging on a recent photo. Her chest hollowed out. It was her, standing in the living room with her bag slung over her shoulder, taken the moment she'd first stepped inside. Her throat closed. Tears blurred her vision. Someone had been here all along, watching, documenting. Behind her, a floorboard creaked. Leah whipped around, phone raised like a weapon. The beam of light shook violently across the room. Nothing there, only shadows crowding the corners. But the air had changed. She wasn't alone. She backed toward the stairs, her phone quivering in her grip. A faint rustle echoed, like fabric brushing against stone. Then came the whisper again, impossibly close. Leah. Her scream tore out raw. She bolted up the stairs two at a time, slamming the trapdoor shut above her. Her chest heaved, body shaking so hard she nearly collapsed. She shoved the rug back over the outline, as if hiding it would make it unreal. But the images on the wall seared her mind. All those faces, all those guests, and her. Her phone buzzed again, vibrating against her palm. She flinched before daring to look. Another photo. This one wasn't from the cellar. It was of the living room right now, taken from behind her. Her heart nearly stopped. She spun around, swinging her phone's weak light across the room. Empty, but the photo had been taken seconds ago. No, she whispered, clutching her chest. No, no, no. The grandfather clock ticked again. Just once. Sharp, mocking. Then came the humming, soft, rising from the cellar beneath her feet. The same broken lullaby floating upward through the floorboards. Leah staggered backward, nearly tripping over the rug again. She pressed her hands to her ears, but the tune seeped into her bones. It wasn't just sound, it was invitation. The rocking chairs creaked once more on the porch, back and forth, steady as breath. Her phone buzzed again, another photo. She forced herself to look. Her heart froze solid. It was a photo of her asleep again. Same angle, same closeness. Except this time, the photo wasn't from last night. She hadn't closed her eyes, never slept. This was a photo of what was about to happen.
Leah's throat felt like it was closing as she stared at the photo. It was impossible, but there it was. Her face, eyes shut, lying in the very bed upstairs. She hadn't slept, not once since arriving. The picture wasn't her past, it was her future. Her hands trembled so violently she nearly dropped the phone again. She pressed herself against the wall, her mind racing. Someone was orchestrating this. Someone wanted her to see. The humming rose again, louder now, seeping from the floorboards beneath her feet. And then another sound joined it, the slow creak of the stairs. Leah froze, staring at the staircase as footsteps descended one by one. She gripped the poker she had dropped earlier, fumbling for it in the dark. Her body shook so badly she could barely hold it steady. The air thickened, pressing in on her lungs. Then, movement. At the bottom of the staircase, two small figures emerged from the shadows. The braided-haired girls. Their pale faces gleamed in the dim light, eyes fixed on her. Leah's breath came in broken gasps. "Stay away," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I'm not playing this game." But the girls didn't speak. They stepped forward in unison, their bare feet silent on the wood. Their mouths opened, releasing the same shrill hum as before, filling the room until it rattled her bones. Leah clapped her hands over her ears, screaming, but the sound wormed its way inside anyway. The grandfather clock chimed suddenly, though its hands were still frozen at 3:07. Each toll reverberated through the room, shaking the portraits on the wall. The hum cut off. Silence. Leah lowered her hands slowly, tears streaking her cheeks. The girls were gone. Her chest heaved as she spun in a circle, scanning every shadow. "What do you want from me?" she cried. The phone buzzed again. She forced herself to look. Another photo. Her heart nearly stopped. It wasn't of her this time. It was of the cellar, the table, a figure laid out on it. The figure was blurry, but she recognized the outline of her own bag dropped nearby. Her vision swam. She clutched the phone like it might anchor her to reality. "No, that's not me. That's not me." The trapdoor creaked beneath the rug, as if something below was pushing it open. Leah stumbled back, tripping against the edge of the sofa. Her chest tightened as the brass ring slowly lifted on its own. The door yawned open, blackness spreading across the floor. The humming started again, louder this time, rising from the dark like a choir. Her phone buzzed. Another photo. She forced her eyes to it. Her blood ran cold. It was her, standing right where she was now, except behind her, just over her shoulder. A tall figure leaned close, too close. Its face was nothing but shadow. Leah screamed and swung around. Nothing. Empty air, but the cold presence pressed against her skin. Undeniable. Her body went numb with terror. She bolted for the stairs, rushing toward the master bedroom. If she couldn't escape the house, maybe she could barricade herself. Maybe she could hold out until daylight brought someone. Anyone. She slammed the bedroom door shut and shoved the dresser in front of it. Her hands shook as she braced the handles with a chair. Her chest heaved as she backed against the wall, clutching her phone like a weapon. Buzz. She glanced down. Another photo. This one was inside the room, the exact angle she would see if she stood in the far corner, watching herself now. Her breath caught. She wasn't alone. The quilt on the bed shifted just slightly, as though something beneath it had stirred. The pillow sank, forming the indentation she'd seen before. Her body locked in place. She wanted to run, to scream, to fight, but her limbs wouldn't obey. Her phone buzzed again. Another photo. Her own body now, lying in that bed, quilt pulled up, eyes shut. Exactly like the first picture she'd seen. Her knees buckled. She dropped the phone. It clattered to the floor. The screen glowed until it dimmed to black. The quilt lifted slowly, as though invisible hands peeled it back. A hollow whisper filled the room, wrapping around her name. Leah. Her vision blurred with tears. She stumbled forward, swinging wildly at the bed with her fists, screaming until her throat tore. But the air swallowed her cries. The last thing she saw was the two braided-haired girls in the doorway, watching with a calm, knowing eyes. Their mouths curved, not into smiles, but into something worse. acceptance. Then the room went dark. The moral of this story: strangers' homes aren't always what they seem. Sometimes the locks are there to keep you in, not out. And also, curiosity can open doors that were meant to stay shut. If you ever feel something is wrong when you enter a place, trust that instinct. Safety doesn't always come with a keypad code and a welcome basket. If this story sent a chill down your spine, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so the nightmares never end. And tell me, would you ever dare spend the night in an Airbnb after this? Until next time, keep the lights on.